in honor of Tu B'Shvat. I'll start with trees. Feels appropriate. One of, if not the largest living organism on Earth is a stand of trembling aspen trees in Fishland National Forest in Utah. Though they might not be the tallest trees, they're not like our giant sequoias or our redwoods here in California, but though they appear to be multiple individual aspen trees, scientists determined that each of these trees are, in fact, just stems of the same root system. And in fact, their roots are many, but their branches are few, if any, I guess. So these trees are, in fact, just stems of the same root system, which spans more than 106 acres. These 47,000 genetically identical stems are understood to actually be part of one enormous living organism. The root system, estimated to be around 9,000 years old, is responsible for coordinating energy production, defense, and regeneration across the tree's landmass. Pando, as it's known, is an incredible example of one massive, genetically identical, homogeneous community, each stem essentially the same, all working together in perfect harmony. This is perhaps a stark contrast to our human communities. Even in communities that might appear homogeneous in some way, perhaps based on some single characteristic they might share in common, there are myriad ways in which we differ from one another. I would argue that while the strength of the trees in Pando is their homogeneity, their sameness, the strength of our human communities are our differences and our diversity. And among our human communities, there are fewer and fewer spaces in which people are willing to put up with or tolerate disagreement. Indeed, the synagogue is one of the increasingly rare spaces in which we are voluntarily in relationship with those with whom we may disagree. How then do we build communities in which everyone feels a sense of belonging, of being an important, valued member of our community, given our ideological differences? Our strength comes from our diversity of experiences and perspectives. At Beth Am, our members reflect the beautiful diversity of the human experience. Different cultures, backgrounds, ethnicities, sexual orientations, gender identities, single people, married people, divorced and widowed people, families in which everyone is Jewish, families with diverse religious practices, East Coasters, West Coasters, Midwesterners. In the midst of one of the most polarized political climates we've seen in generations, here at Beth Am, we have wide-ranging and sometimes conflicting views on Israel, on American politics, on our understanding of God, if we even believe in God, on how we do or don't practice Judaism, on where to find the best bagels or pizza. With all of these different experiences and perspectives, how do we build a community in which we are able to find a way forward together? First, we need to recognize what we have in common. What are our shared values as a community, inspired by the lessons of our tradition? In this moment in which the echo chambers on our social media feeds and chosen news platforms, there is actually something quite countercultural in our Jewish tradition, in which argumentation and debate and disagreement are hardwired into our very fabric. The rabbis of antiquity referred to this concept of sacred disagreement as machlochet l'shem shamayim, argument for the sake of heaven. We read in Pirkei Avot, our collection of ethical teachings, any argument which is for the sake of heaven, its end will endure. But one that is not for the sake of heaven, its end will not endure. What is an argument for the sake of heaven, asked the rabbis? The arguments of Hillel and Shammai. And one that is not for the sake of heaven, the arguments of Korach and his company. According to tradition, the arguments of Hillel and Shammai were around big fundamental questions about things like practice and interpretation of Jewish law. One of the most famous stories is of someone who approaches the schools of Hillel and Shammai, who may or may not have been a serious student, but who came up with a challenge for each of the rabbis to explain the whole Torah while standing on one foot. Shammai rebukes the man, telling him that the task is impossible and sends him on his way. As a strict interpreter of Jewish law and a literalist, Shammai could not imagine fulfilling this man's ridiculous request. But Hillel welcomes him in and explains, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. The rest is commentary. Now go and study. Hillel, in his characteristically inclusive and flexible approach, offers the man a taste of the Torah's essence and values, and then offers an invitation. Now go and begin to really study. This tidbit is just the beginning. In story after story, the two schools tend to be at opposite ends of the spectrum of interpretation. But what they're both trying to get to is a deeper understanding of truth itself. What is problematic is not debate itself, but debate that does not attempt to reveal the truth, and especially God's truth. Debate that is only self-serving, or an uprising like Korach's, which really was only about furthering Korach, is an attempt to be victorious over the other side, is considered to be baseless and unproductive. The debate that is for the sake of heaven, which stems from a desire to seek the truth, will endure. At its core, argumentation is a feature, not a bug, of our Jewish ethical system. One of our best examples of creating this kind of space is our Israel discussion group, which happens just before services every Friday night. Led by the calm, caring presence of Uriela ben Yaakov, this group has been meeting since just after October 7th, 2023, and has been a unique space in which people with many disparate and differing views on Israel come together each week to share, to reflect, to mourn, and to simply be together. Though they might have opposing views on how the Israel-Gaza war is being waged or the political choices being made, they all have a core abiding care and concern for Israel, for her people, and for the need for an enduring peace. And in the process, they have built a beautiful and loving community within our community as well. We also need to establish ground rules for how we disagree and argue. In our Torah portion this week, Yitro, we find the 10 Commandments, known in Hebrew as the Aseret HaDibrot, literally the 10 utterances. These 10 principles offer guidance and ground rules that shaped how the Israelites and even our societies and communities today relate to and engage with each other in a complex, diverse society, for treating each other with respect, care, and dignity. Here at Beth Am, our mission provides some basic ground rules for the values of our community. We strive to live as a holy community whose study and practice of Judaism inspires and challenges us to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God, in the words of Micah. We learn and engage deeply with our tradition. We recognize and acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge and our assumptions, and we work diligently to make our world a better place. Animated by our core values, core Jewish values of respect, of recognizing the divine spark within every human being, of caring for each person as an individual, and for holding and lifting up the most vulnerable in our society. The Torah speaks of the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the laborer, and those with disabilities. Debates about how best to care for and support each other and our neighbors should animate how we approach our sacred disagreements. We also must recognize in our Beth Am community, we are committed to our relationships with each other, to see each other and be seen, to know each other and be known by others. I'd like to propose a few ground rules as we move forward together in these challenging times. First, we must resist the binary, the urge to see things as black and white, as either or as a zero-sum game. We must look for the nuance in every situation. Next, we need to commit to assuming the best of intentions in each other. When we are in deep relationship with each other, when we are invested in each other's well-being, then we can weather the disagreements and tensions that are bound to arise in the life of our community. And third, though certainly not the last of what we need, third, we need to lean into curiosity. In the words of the great sage Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. As the rabbis understood of a machlochet l'shem shamayim, a sacred disagreement is one in which no one is more committed to being right than to seeking truth and understanding. There's an organization that focuses on bringing people who disagree together to establish pathways for open and honest communication. It's called Resetting the Table, who suggests that we need to pursue perspectives we don't yet understand. In their guidelines for difficult conversations, they suggest, ask yourself, who is and isn't informing my thinking? What can I read? Who can I talk to? Remember, we can still fight to address our concerns, knowing understanding is not agreement. As Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, reminds Moses at the beginning of our parsha, the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Though Jethro is talking about delegating leadership, there's a lesson for us here as well. Just like the many stems of the trembling aspen, we need each other to thrive. Nearly 2 millennia ago, our sages created a blessing for diversity when we are in the presence of a diverse community. Baruch ha'chacham hara'azim she'ein da'atam doma zeh lazeh ve'ein partufehen domim zeh lazeh. Blessed are you, the sage of all secret things, for their minds are not similar to each other, and their faces are all unique. We humans are not meant to be alone. And each time we show up in this place, we are creating our community in all of its beautiful, messy diversity. Shabbat shalom.